Hello, everybody. Now, this may be a little bit odd to call this one a game and two a nostalgia game. However, when I was younger, we used to play the political compass test to see how close we could get to a certain politician. So, I'm going to try my absolute best to get as close to Joseph Stalin as I possibly can. So, let's take the test. So the reason I'm going to go through this is because this is the nostalgia game that I used to play. This isn't, of course, everybody's nostalgia game. So I think he would strongly disagree with that. I think because he's trying to create the machine to literally just rule the world. Get out of here, Java. I'd always support my country. I think he would strongly agree with that. No one chooses. It's foolish to be proud. I think he'd disagree with that. I think he'd strongly agree with superior qualities of other races. He would deport people, he would enslave people, and he would throw people to Siberia if he did not like their race. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. I think he would strongly disagree with that. He used the Americas and the West as a partnership during World War II. It wasn't, really, really a friendship. A military action is sometimes justified. I think he would. This is probably the one he would agree the most about. I don't think he really cares about this, so I'll just put disagree. People are ultimately more divided by class than nationality. Strongly disagree. There was no classes in a communist system. Controlling inflation is more important than controlling unemployment. He would disagree with that. Inflation does not matter in a communist utopia under himself. And you may be like, Mason, this is a really weird game to play. But this is something that we played. I had fun in the past with trying to figure it out because you can answer your own beliefs on things. And this thing will tell you like 6 different things if you were to take the exact same test. And it'll move you around the graph a little bit. So because corporations cannot be trusted, they require regulations. Of course. Stalin loved regulation. This is literally from the Communist Manifesto. He would strongly agree with that. Free the market, free the people. Disagree. He wants to free people by giving them absolutely no choice. Is that the true freedom? It's sad to reflect on our society. Branded consumer product, of course. Everything needs to be run by the state and will provide for you. Land should not be a commodity, of course. Should not be. It's the state to own. It's not for you to own. Regrettable for a personal, of course. There should not be people that make money. And the things I'm saying right now are not my personal beliefs. I'm looking at it specifically from how Stalin probably would have looked at it. Protectionism is sometimes necessary. Of course it is. Social responsibility of a company to deliver profit. Of course not. There should be no companies. The rich are too highly taxed. Strongly disagree. We need to tax those people more, apparently, by just completely taking their wealth. Ability to pay should have access. Strongly disagree. We all get the same access, comrade. Anyway, government should penalize businesses. Of course, there won't be businesses, but if there were, a genuine free market requires restrictions. Of course, we need as much regulation as we possibly can to try to get this. I'll be honest with you, I don't think Stalin had a known opinion on abortion. I might be wrong with that. I'm going to say disagree, mainly because he didn't care about people. All authority should be questioned. Of course not. He's the supreme leader, or whatever his title was. Eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. Of course not. We're the state. The state gets to do whatever they want. Taxpayers should not be expected. Of course. We don't care about history here in the Soviet Union. We will move forward. Schools should not strongly disagree. We need to indoctrinate the youth through mandatory classroom attendance. All people have their rights. Of course. Strongly agree. Like I said before, Stalin was a very racist person. Good parents sometimes have to spank their kids. Of course. Natural to keep some secrets. Secrets from the parents and from the state? Hell no. Possessing marijuana for personal use. Strongly disagree. I don't believe they really allowed many drugs there. In fact, people were literally sweeping corn kernels off of their floors to try to eat. So I don't think they were worried too much about drugs unless you were a high-up party leader. Prime function of schooling to find jobs, of course. Literally put them into the job market, and that's all that we need. Hell, we don't even need school for some of it. People with serious inheritable disease, I want to very specifically reiterate, this is from what he believes, not what I believe. He was 100% a geneticist, or a eugenicist. Most important thing is discipline for children, of course. No savage and civilized. Strongly disagree. Dictators tend to use dehumanizing language like savages. Those who are able to work and refuse should not expect. I think he would disagree, but I think there's nuance in this question. Everybody is given the same thing, not just the one person that does the best or one person that does the worst. There is, I guess we'll just move on from that. This is solely about Stalin. This is not about my opinions. All right, when you are troubled, it is better not to think about it. Of course. Of course. When you're troubled with how much work you need to do, then just think about something different. I don't think they really had immigrants, so I'll put strongly agree, because it was literally, what area did we take over and how can we enslave you? Most successful corporations, I'm going to strongly disagree with that because they didn't like corporations. No broadcasting should receive public funding. Strongly disagree. The only broadcasting should be from the state, comrade. All right. I will also have a little link to, I took 5 political compass tests to show where I am at, if you are interested in that at all, because politics is a divisive topic already. If you want to be even more divisive, you can watch that. If not, all good, that'll pop up somewhere here in the tags. But our civil liberalism, all right, we need to get rid of civil liberties. We don't have those. The state is in charge of those. Significant advantage is it avoids all arguments, of course. And I think this is fundamentally true. And this is not just a Stalin opinion. You have dictatorships that are able to be inherently quick because you just need to rely on one person, as opposed to multiple people arguing and needing to reach a compromise. So I believe this is factually correct. Only wrongdoers need to be worried. Of course, of course. Everybody is considered a wrongdoer in the eyes of the state, so everyone should be worried. But death penalty should be an option, of course. They would put people to death for, like, just about nothing. You know how I said they swept up corn kernels? They put people to death for them because they were, quote-unquote, hoarding food. A civilized society, of course. Of course. People above to be obeyed. Such as the party leader. Abstract art doesn't represent anything. I believe he agreed with that. I think that is something that he agreed with. They didn't allow modern art, and then you have like Nikita Khrushchev and stuff like that taking over, and they started to open up to the West a little bit more in terms of entertainment and enjoyment from the Stalinist way of doing things. In criminal justice, punishment should be more than rehabilitation. Yeah, of course, of course. It's a waste of time. Strongly agree. A person and of course, the manufacturer specifically, we don't care about the business person. We don't have individual businesses. Mothers have careers, yeah. I mean, everybody's going to work in the coal mines or the farming fields or whatever, but I mean, sure, I guess they can have kids and try to enjoy life. Almost all politicians praise economic growth. I do not think Stalin even gave a singular shit about climate change, so we'll move on from there. Making peace with the establishment. Of course, you need to go along with what the party says. Astrology, strongly disagree. I don't believe Stalin was religious, and in fact, I believe that they got rid of a lot of churches, they got rid of a lot of synagogues, and I don't think there were many mosques in Russia at that point in time, but I might be wrong. So, charity is better than Social Security. I think they don't have Social Security over there. They didn't, at least. It was everybody's equally oppressed, unless you're like the head of a party, or at the top of the party, I should say. Some people are naturally unlucky. I mean, I think this is a evident fact that everybody agrees that everybody's unlucky at some point in their life. Important my school strongly disagree. We don't want religious values in our communist utopia. Finally, a look at sex. I don't know if he cared, so I'll also just disagree with that. I would strongly disagree with that. Oh wait, strongly agree with that. They did not like homosexuality. Pornography, I don't believe that they disseminated pornography by the state. What's private, strongly disagree. It's always the state's business. No one can naturally feel homosexual. I'm going to say that he would probably agree with that. Openness about sex has gone too far. I'd say he'd probably agree with that. So let's scroll down. I'm looking for around North Korea level. Now, I might have gotten this wrong a little bit. Okay, apparently I was not authoritarian enough to be Stalin. However, I was gonna say I'm pretty sure. Uh, yeah. Yeah, we're in the right area of the map. Stalin probably would have been more up here, so I did pretty good because you have Hitler usually right around right here. You have Mao normally as the absolute most left and most authoritarian. Most countries are around the authoritarian. There are very few places like I don't even know if I would consider them libertarian as much. I think libertarian is kind of made fun of because it's very hard to be a state yourself and to be libertarian. You can have citizens that are libertarian, but let's see if we can find specifics analysis. View the analysis. Is there anything to do with specifically Stalin? No. All right. Stalin political compass. Perfect. Let's see what it looks like. I don't think that's true. I think this is wrong. Oh, great, we're on Reddit. Okay, never mind, we're leaving. I think Stalin would have been a little bit higher. Stalin apparently is all of them, according to Reddit. Okay, so I think that's pretty close to what happened with the Russian Revolution, so it'd be fair. I think Stalin's a little bit higher up than what this Reddit post is saying right here. But, I mean, we were generally in the correct area for it. So, if you enjoyed, of course, we have a lot of stuff going on. Most of it is not politics based. Like I said, if you want to see what I believe, there will be an unlisted video that you can click to. But this is the political compass, and yeah, I hope you enjoyed.